This is a hecte. That means it's 1/6 of a stater. And the stater we're talking about is the stater from ancient Lydia. Pretty much the first coin ever, as far as anyone who's into Western civilization's coins would consider a coin. So Lydia, that's in present-day Turkey, and just a little bit east of where this was struck in Erythrae. Erythrae is part of Ionia, kind of the eastern edge of Ionia, and Ionia itself is mostly a network of islands in the Aegean Sea. And the far western edge of that spray of islands would be the far eastern coast, maybe northeastern coast, or even just a little piece of the northeastern coast of modern-day Greece. And that's where Athens is. Athens is kind of the far west of Ionia. And the Athenians were considered the Ionian Greeks, just like the people who struck this. So this, according to the attribution, is from 550 to 500 BC. Interestingly, that coincides with the life of Siddhartha, the originator of Buddhism. Siddhartha, born in India in, I believe, 543 BC. So if you're in a place like Thailand, they still are measuring or using a date system that is already currently like 2000. It's 2561. 2561 is the date right now, 2018, over in Thailand. And that's because they're measuring it from 543 BC, which they consider to be the birth of Siddhartha. And he's, I think, generally accepted to be a historic human. So anyway, while he's going on, this coin is getting struck, part of the earliest bunch of coins that were ever struck. And so Lydia, like I was talking about, and the stater we're talking about from Lydia is from the kings that are, some of them you might have heard of, like King Midas, the legend that everything he touched turned into gold. And then Croesus, who they say, rich as Croesus. And there's also a King Walwit, who I think is earlier than Croesus. I believe Croesus is kind of the last one because he lost his kingdom to Cyrus the Great of the Persian Achaemenid Empire. And, there's the story that Croesus asked the oracle at Delphi, should he fight Cyrus and the Persians? And the oracle said, if you do, a great empire will fall. And he said, awesome. And he did fight him, and his own empire fell. So he, should have asked for some more details. So the staters that this is considered to be a weight equal to the sixth of, they had like a lion confronting a calf, maybe it's a lamb, on them. And some of those are pure gold. This is electrum, though, and electrum is a mix between silver and gold. Now, there's a little bit of debate about whether or not electrum was intentionally a mix between silver and gold, or else, or on the other hand, was it just coming out of the ground that way, and that's why that's the composition. I think originally people figured, it naturally occurs, and so they were just using the metal that they found in the ground to make the coins, and that's why they're electrum. There is a other side of that argument where people say, no, actually, this is a lot more sophisticated than that, and it was intentionally mixed between silver and gold as a way to address the eternal struggle, the eternal problem of bimetallism. Same thing that William Jennings Bryan was arguing with President McKinley about thousands of years later in 1900 and 1899. And what is that problem? It's the problem that there's a never-ending change between the exchange rate between gold and silver. unless it's fixed by law as a fiat of the government, gold has a different value than silver at any given time. Right now in 2018, July, I'm not sure what the number is, but it's real high, like 60 to 80 silvers to one gold. And we know that way back, not even that far way back, 100 or 200 years ago, it's closer to 16 silvers to one gold. And even if we go back like 5 years, it would be a lower silver number, meaning silver was relatively more valuable than now compared to gold, maybe in the 50s instead of the 80s. To clarify, if the number is a higher number of silvers to one gold, that means that silver is relatively less valuable than if there's a lower number of silvers to one gold. So anyway, I have read that some people think the electrum was meant to address this by putting them both in one coin, so it wouldn't be something that you'd have to deal with. You just had one coin, it was electrum, it had silver and gold in it, and that was the end of the story. You weren't changing up your silvers for golds. You just had one currency, one kind of coinage that was a mix. So who knows? I don't think we have anything written down that's going to answer that question. I suppose you might get some clues if you really tested the composition of a bunch of these. One clue that it was intentional, though, is the fact that they were able to strike pure gold or almost pure gold coins at the same time, which implies that it was not a failure of the ability to refine it, but it was a choice. Anyway, a very beautiful, well-preserved specimen here. This is a tiny coin. I'm going to try to get a good look at it here. This is, as you might have seen on the label there, just about 2-point-something grams. And it's Heracles. This is a theme you'll see over and over and over again. You'll see Alexander the Great a few hundred years later showing up on coins like this. He's wearing a lion skin headdress, which comes from the story of Hercules or Heracles. And I've seen other examples of this or pictures of this same issue. So it's not a super rare issue, but they don't look this good. And it's not just because of the preservation. You can see NGC gave it a little star and said it's choice almost uncirculated. The thing is, the die is really nicely cut. This is an expressive face, and the strike is really nice. It looks like a cartoon. It's just something that is hard to imagine has made it this long. And we can imagine this guy's face being seen by people thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, and people taking some pleasure in that. And, I've never gotten to handle this because when I bought it, it was already in the case, but it's a thick chunk, For being so tiny, it's thick. And to come up with that 2.5 grams, it's got to be dense. And I'll show you next time. I've got one of the Achaemenid Persian full staters from about 100, 150 years later. And it too looks really small. It's because it's really thick. The reverse is just the incuse. I think they call it a quadripartite punch. Not sure exactly what that's meant to represent, other than just a sign that it is what it's supposed to be, or possibly that was some way of holding the piece of metal firm while it was getting whacked with the other side by the hammer and the other side of the die. So, not a lot to look at there, but very attractive little coin and very old. So there you have it. Ionia.